All right, this is your boy D back with another video on You Can Be Free. I got my brother in Christ with us today. His name is Kelby. He's going to be sharing his testimony. And I was just telling him before we was recording, like, I really don't know much about his story. I shared it on Facebook. He got a lot of attention from it. So it's like, I'm ready to hear this whole story. I already know this is going to be a hitter. So people that know me know that I don't like doing a lot of talking. I like to get right into it. So go ahead, Kelby. Kelby, I'm sorry. You can go ahead and start from wherever part of your story that you want to share from.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, very honored to be on here. Well, I'll do this. Before I jump in, what do you think your audience, like, what do you think their background is? What do you think, like, they're really, like, I'm trying to get a feel for, like, who would be watching us.
So it's going to be a mix. I think it's going to be probably like 40% or maybe even 50% of people that are from rougher backgrounds. And then 25% are going to be people that are mature in Christ. The other 20% will be people that are in church, but maybe just like babes in Christ. So it's going to be a mixture.
Okay. Well, then let's do it then. I mean, where do I start? I don't want to go too far back, but I'll say this. Grew up in North Carolina, Asheville to be exact. Asheville got a lot of headline news recently because of the hurricane that came through and just decimated that place. But grew up in Asheville on, in the hood, honestly. Section 8 lifestyle, oldest of 7 sons. Mother was doing her best. Father was never really in the picture. He was in prison. And at a very young age, I just started to see things and be attracted to things that were not beneficial to me. And it got to a point where by the time I was a teenager, I was experimenting with drugs and smoking weed and smoking blunts and drinking Four Locos. I'm 14 years old, and I'm thinking about joining the gang because my other brother on my father's side was in the gang, and I'm thinking about jumping in Blood Gang, and like it's already starting to just, I don't know. It's starting to get its grips on me, the stereotype. And it got to a point where, I don't know, about 15, 16, I decided to drop out of high school. Like, it was a tough situation. First of all, I got in trouble because I was living with my aunt at the time because I did not want to live with my mother. And I got in trouble with my aunt because I was trying to sell dope at 15. And I threw fake dope on my dresser, crack, if I can be more specific. I had a bag, it was a little, I don't know, counterfeit bag of stuff that I was going to try to sell in the hood real quick. But I had to go run to my girlfriend's house, and I had to take the city bus. And I just threw it on the dresser, through my hoodie because the city bus was coming. I didn't think about hiding it really well. I come back home, and my hoodie was lifted. My aunt had gone in the room cleaning up, and she found it, and she was just, in tears, kind of and downstairs. And when I walked in, she was just like, you gotta go. And I knew already, like, she must have found it. And because in that neighborhood, your benefits was directly tied to the behavior. So if you had people in your house that was doing stuff, they'll take your benefits away. Section 8, they'll take that away from you. And so I had to leave the house or she was going to get evicted. So I didn't want to go back to my mother's place because I wanted to stay in Asheville. This is my home. This is my friends. I knew this place. So I begged my grandmother to try to take me. And my grandfather was like, no, this little ratchet, nah, we're not taking him. He's going to be, and he fought. And, I pleaded and begged, and my grandmother took she took a step of faith and decided to let me stay. And it was strict, though. She had a lot of rules for me. I wasn't spending the night at no one's house. I had to be on AB honor roll, had to play basketball. If I even took the bike outside, I had to wear a helmet. Like, it was strict. And I had to oblige because, like, she was taking a chance with me, and I knew I had messed up big time. So, 15, 16, I'm in school. I got these tendencies and urges to be gangsta and want to run around and be crazy and just like, do my own thing. I'm still sneaking and trying to smoke weed on the side. And it just got to a point where they were so strict. I said, you know what, I'm leaving. I'm a bounce. I'm gonna go live with my mother down in South Carolina. And I came down to South Carolina easily, 16 or 17 years old. And within the first week, got into a fight with some kids across this railroad tracks. We were at an event, and my brothers were already down here. My younger brothers were already down here. So I was hanging with them, and they had friends. And it just led to, I don't know, something. And now I got a little name for myself that I got to live up to in this new neighborhood where I could have started fresh. So that led me to meeting more bad folks, more bad people, the boys that I probably should have been around if I knew better at the time. And so I start hanging around with this new crew down here in South Carolina in the upstate, Easley to be exact, right near Greenville. And we start breaking laws, first with drinking and just doing stupid stuff. And then now we're breaking into gas stations, we're breaking into people's homes, and it's just getting crazy. We're racking up, not charges yet, but we're racking up headlines of break-ins happening in this west side of the city. And it was 4 of us kind of doing this and going crazy with it. And the detectives they were suspicious of us because they seen us around the neighborhood, always in bad areas of the neighborhood, hanging out. They knew we was up to, one time they pulled us over and we was drinking and they could smell it on our breath. I don't know why they didn't. Now I think about it, I don't know why. They was building a case, I think, with us. So they was letting us get in trouble and they was really letting this thing go all out, because when the police ran up on us, immediately they called the detective. And now when I look back, hindsight, I know that they were building the case. That's why they were letting us kind of tell on ourselves a little bit. But anyways, I started hanging around these groups of guys and then getting in more trouble and more trouble. I end up getting locked up, 16, 17 years old. I get locked up for the first time for, I think, burglary, 2nd degree, some malicious damage, some grand larceny, and I'm 17, right? So I get in there and they let me bond out. I was so young, first time ever technically getting in trouble. I get the bond out and I did good. Went back to my mom's house. Poor mother. She's just trying her best to keep me on the right path and speak life into me and trying to get me to make the right decisions. And I did good for a week or two. And next thing you know, I'm hanging out with the crew again and we get into more trouble. And I get locked up again.
The first time you got locked up, how long was you locked up for?
I was in probably like 2-3 days. 2-3 days. Yeah, I was in and out. They let me bond out pretty quick. I think I got the sign, or it was just a really low. It was my first time, and so they had grace with me. Okay. So I got out real quick, and then a couple weeks later, I'm back in trouble, and got locked up again, on some more burglary charges or something, and like now they're like, all right, kid, we ain't letting you out just easy. You're going to get a nice bond, and you're going to have to pay that to get out. And I remember telling my mom, I called her, and I was like, Ma, I'm still 17, which is crazy. I'm racking up these felonies as a 17-year-old, getting charged as an adult. And I tell Mom, inside my closet is a T-shirt where I tied the long sleeve. I tied a knot in it, and I put cash inside of that. I hid some money in there. And I told her if she can take some of that money and please come bond me out. And she did. And she helped me out a lot and just kept having mercy on me. And I came back home and I was like, all right, I need to chill out. And get my life together. I was selling weed at that time. It was, I don't know. I was in the mix. But I decided this time I need to lay low, not do nothing stupid. Well, a couple months goes by and one of the boys tells me about this new, I guess, this new situation at hand that we could take advantage of. And I kid you not, it was a young girl that we knew, a girl from a neighborhood. She had got mad at her parents. She was, I don't know, 16, 17. She had got mad at her parents, and her parents owned a restaurant. And they convinced her to take money from her parents' safe that they hid in the house, 60 grand and run away with us. And the boys came to me and was like, yo, you won't believe this, but we got like 60 G's. Like this girl, like, you know, homegirl, she da 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 da. And they explained everything. And I'm like, no way. And they like, yeah, that's like, we'll show you. And so we go somewhere and yeah, man, we just on the floor, 20, 30 racks of just cash. And, you know, we got this girl now who's her parents filed missing and the police are looking for her. And we're hiding out in Greenville and we're taking this money and going running around. Like I remember we were so scared to go out in the daylight with all this money because we were just going to blow it. We weren't thinking I was going to buy a bunch of weed, and we did. We bought a bunch of weed, a couple QPs. I mean, maybe a pound or two of just of weed, and was going to sell it. And we also just went splurging with this poor family's money. And we were so scared to do it during the day that we went at nighttime to Walmart and would just fill up the cart with a bunch of stupid stuff, TVs, a PlayStation. You know, I remember walking out and one of my homeboys was like, because he was incoherent, drunk, or he was on pills, Xanax or something. And he bought the same Madden game twice and didn't even realize it because he was just stupid and just like not caring. It's not our money anyways. But we were rolling. I mean, it got to the point where my mother was wondering, what is going on? Where's all this money coming from? And like, what are you doing? I remember coming home 17, and this is when Wiz Khalifa, Black and Yellow came out. That song that was trending, Black and Yellow, but that was popular. I painted the whole room black and yellow. I'm talking about my roof, black and yellow, the room. I redecked the whole room with furniture and beds. Bought a couple QPs of weed and was selling weed. I remember hiding it inside of a jar with a fishing line inside of our house, you know, like the vents that are on the floor. Mm-hmm. I would put the jar in the vent on the fishing line and throw it down the pipe down there, and I would just tie it underneath. So whenever I needed it, I would just dig my hand under there, pull the fishing line, and I'd pull out this jar of weed. And it was just like, I'm already out on bond twice. 17. I had this Jeep Cherokee. I can't remember now. I think there might have been a hole at the bottom just in case if we got pulled over, I could start dumping weed. And I'm just totally forgetting about the fact that, like, yo, dude, you get locked up one more time, it's on. Well, one night, the police, after about 2 weeks of this girl being missing, the parents filed a missing report, and she's 17 or 16, and so like they're coming for her. They're hiding in Greenville. And the police find them, and they're so anxious and filled with anxiety, and they've been missing, and they've been high on coke and Xanax for like just that they end up like basically snitching on themselves. They can't lie good enough to the cops that they end up just saying something so stupid that the cops realize, oh, something's going on with these guys. And I had no idea about it. The girl and my friends at the time was doing their own thing. I did what I did and met with the boys, and I was kind of a weed man for them. And I knew where to go to get like a lot of weed at the time, pounds. And at that point, that's what they wanted. And so I played my part and then left. But at this now, they done got the girl, the police done got her, and she just starts telling everything, spilling everything. And so now the team, sled maybe, or I don't know, but now they're coming and get us one by one, and eventually they get to my house and here, knock on the door. My little brother goes, checks the door. He's 11, 12. Kelby, somebody's here for you. I go check the front door. It is Detective Brandon Liner, and that's a really important name because it's going to come back later on in this story. He's at the door. And I kid you not, bro. There is a half an ounce of weed right by my groin because I just knew these people were coming for me, and I was scared. And I didn't throw it away in the house or nothing, but it's like right there. I'm in my boxers and a wife beater, and he just looks at me and says, "Kelby, come with me." And I look outside. They got this whole thing surrounded. He's got the gun on the not just the. He's not even in his uniform. It's on some like undercover type stuff. They knew I was going to try to run. And like they took me in, and, you know, this is now my third time being locked up within the same period that I haven't even went to court for the other charges. By the way, that second charge that I caught, we actually broke into a church. We actually broke into a church. Yeah. Multiple churches. And this time, and that second time, because I knew I was already on a bond, I was not going out the easy way. We were going to take off running. I was going to do whatever I can. And they sent a K9 into the church we were in. 2:00 in the morning. We're high off Xanax and Klonopins and drinking and like out of our minds, you know, in the enemy's hands, right where he wants us. And yeah, we got in trouble. And I'll never forget that, because they really brought a dog to that church. And then they tackled me, you know, about knocked me out. One of the dudes hit me so hard in the back of the head, I about went to sleep. Threw me in the back of the car. But, you know, this third time now, I get to the jailhouse and get in front of the judge, and I'm still 17. And judge is like, I'm not letting you out. You are going to sit in here now till whenever your court date appears. And rightfully so. Like, every time they let me out, I was back. I was not proving to them that I cared. So here I am, 17, in this jail cell, never been before, you know, and I can't get out. And, you know, this is now where God starts to intervene. You know, one day I'm in there, and if you've been locked up, you know that they have visitation days. I think it was on Wednesday at this particular jail. Anyways, it's Tuesday, and God comes in, Mcnab, you got a visitor. I'm like, yo, it's not Wednesday, so who's visiting? I got nothing else to do, so I go with them, and they take me to the room, and I look in this room, and behind this glass is this bald-headed white man I've never seen before. No idea who this guy is. I sit down, talk to him. And he's like, you know, hey, Kelby, you know, my name's Jason. I just wanted to come up here, talk with you. I'm a pastor, and I just wanted to come and chat, talk with you. And so I sat down, I talked to him, and I'm like, you know, okay, interesting. You're a pastor? What are you doing here? You know? And he just starts talking to me and asking, you know, really thoughtful questions about my life, and I'm talking to him back, and I even kind of tell him, like, look, man, I believe in God, but I'm in a bad spot right now. Like, the churches I broke into, you probably know those pastors. Like, I think a better time would be better for me to start considering my life with Christ. And he just kind of intervenes and keeps prodding and keeps speaking life into me. And then he gets to a point where he shares me a story about Saul. And he talks to me about this guy named Saul, who got his name rewritten to Paul after an amazing encounter with the Lord. And he shares this with me. And I remember just kind of bursting into tears in that room, because up to that point, man, I was all over the place. No father, no. I mean, like, I was running my house, the oldest of 7 boys. I was trying to do what I thought was best. I was chasing the things that I feel like would bring me significance, whether it was the gang, whether it was just being, I don't know, being a G and trying to pursue that life. And I was obviously not doing the right thing. And it got me into this point. And for a moment there, I felt hope get deposited in my life. And I know now, looking back on it, that it was the Holy Spirit that deposited that hope, that, you know, you don't have to live like this. Like, this doesn't have to be your life. And he gave me this New Believer's Bible, and I went back to the jail cell, and I just started opening that thing up and reading it. And I remember coming across a verse where Jesus was like, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And I always thought that was really interesting because that was like such a deep, profound, like, at least at that time, it just hit me like, wow, don't let your right hand know what your left hand. And it hit me like a bag of bricks. And at this particular jail cell, there was a lot of inmates that was smoking meth and coming in off the streets. These cats been up for 6-7 days, seeing shadow people, and who knows the demons that they were fighting out there. And they would sleep for like days, but they were all skinny, super skinny. And they was not feeding us that well in there. And Ma Dukes, you know, she was putting money on my books and trying to take care of me. Her poor baby boy, oldest son, freaking locked up, being stupid. Now he's stuck in here. But had his 18th birthday in the jail cell. The inmates made me duplex cookie cake and Rice Krispies and peanut butter. It was, you know, it was a terrible cake, but it was definitely an 18th birthday I'll never forget. And, you know, I remember reading this verse, and I jumped out of the bunk that night, and I took a couple pack of noodles, and I would just hide it under these guys' mats. They wake up in the morning, they might find something there and have something to eat, because I was thinking about what Jesus had just said. And I was also starting to feel like, okay, Lord, maybe this doesn't have to be the life that I have to live. Maybe actually you are real and you do care about people like me, not just pastors, preachers, and the good folks, but like people like me. And you actually use people like me. So let me just start putting this stuff to work while I can. And I would join a Bible study group and, you know, do my thing. I still got into a couple fights in there. I still had to do whatever I needed to do. I was working out the salvation. I was working out this new experience. And anyways, push come to shove, I get in front of the judge. And I'm not going to lie now. At this point, it's not looking good for my rap sheet. By the grace of God, though, because I was 17, 18, and also that I had not any charges before this whole thing. They sentenced me to a while away program. It's 6 to 10 months down the road, and you're on a specific program. It's almost like military. Almost, they're trying to break you, and if they do break you, you go down further for 14 months. So they shipped me off down to Columbia, South Carolina, and you know, I was down there on a yard for 4 or 5 months. And then came back home with 5 years parole because I was on this Youth Offender Act. That means you're such a young man, you're getting charged as an adult, but you're literally you just turned 18. We're going to offer you this special privilege. And the key is this. You're going to do not the time you should do, which was like a couple of years. We're going to reduce that. You're going to be put on this parole, though, this program, and you're going to do all these 5 years. And we're going to help you become a productive citizen. So I did that, came home, and felt inspired to live differently now. And I just thought about that bald-headed white guy again. Like, where is that dude at? Like, that guy who came and visited me. Come to find out, he's a youth pastor at this church in the town. And so I go start talking to him, hanging out, and he's inviting me to services. We go out for lunch. I'm hitting him with all kinds of questions. Like, you know, I was still so new into this. And I wasn't perfect when I got out neither. I mean, I wouldn't smoke weed because I didn't want to fail a drug test. But I was still like hooking up with my girlfriend and just doing a bunch of things that I wasn't really pursuing this life with Christ like I wanted, like I should have. But I would come to him with these questions and talk to him about stuff. And crazy stuff. I'd be like, yeah, but like the white man wrote the Bible, and like, how do I know that's true? How do I know this stuff is true? Or we even got into a conversation one time about aliens. It was so weird, but he would just put up with me. He would put up with me every week, put up with me. I'd disappear for 2 months and come back. And so we started to form a relationship. We really did. And I ended up getting a job at Jersey Mike's, making sandwiches. If you've ever been to Jersey Mike's, it's, you know, it's a nice sub shop. That's
my tier. That's my spot.
Yeah, Jersey Mike's. It's expensive, but it's top tier. And I end up working there. Some, you know, Ryan, the boss who came out of the army, just got back from Iraq a couple years ago, and he hired me. And I worked my way up to shift supervisor. I'm doing good. I'm on year 3 of parole. You know, I got this little sub shop thing going on. I'm a supervisor here, and girlfriend at the time, and mom's still cool with me. She's letting me stay at the house. Now I'm not staying in the house. I'm staying in the back in a shed with an extension cord that's running out to the shed for power. We bought one of them sheds. Sometimes you see them on the side of the roads, like it's like these 12 by 16 building sheds. You can rent to own one of them. We bought one of them, put in the backyard, and that's where I was staying because we didn't have a lot of room in that house. And so I'm doing this, and then life happens again. You know, I start drinking a little bit. Nothing. I don't know. I just start drinking a little bit and popping pills now, Xanax and Klonopins.
What do you feel back down that road? Like, what made you, like, because you got this past in your life and all this, but what do you think? Why did you go back that way?
Well, I still didn't feel important, and for me, significance was a big driver. Significance and escaping my feelings. I wasn't mature. I haven't been brought up to understand that suffering is okay. Learning to deal with not getting your way, not feeling important is okay. And there are healthy ways to handle these things. Although I was saved, although I felt like God had a real moment in my life, I still was not mature in this aspect of walking out the realities of life as a young man, as a young African mixed, technically African-American man with a felony, no high school, no college. I was not prepared intellectually or emotionally for some of the burdens of life. And my cope, alcohol, was really nice. Alcohol gave me a lot of certainty. Like, I would not go talk to someone because I'd awkward. I'd beat myself up. Like, I don't sound good. I'm not professional. I wouldn't go talk to a girl. I wouldn't do nothing. But when I got alcohol in me, I didn't care. I was like, all right, well, I'll just go talk to anybody. It gave me certainty. Xanax and pills just really added another level of killing the nerves, like especially with those types of drugs. They make you almost feel like invisible or invincible. So I started experimenting with them. And then I lost a little brother. You know, one night he was driving to girlfriend's house, and he was probably drinking, now that we look back on it and see some of the forensics evidence and stuff, I guess. He got to a bad car wreck. And I knew something was wrong that night. And I told my girl at the time to drive me down this road. Something's up. He wasn't answering my phone calls. And I drive down the road that he takes, and the fire department's in the middle of the road. And they're like, you can't go down this road. There's been an accident. And I'm just like, no, what do you mean? And so we just drove right past him. And he pulled up on the scene, and it was his car. He had just been involved in a very terrible accident and lost his life at 16. And so I'm on the side of the road. The fire department's with me. These officers are praying for me. You know, I'm on parole. I got all this stuff. And I'm just, life is happening now. So I go home that night with the state trooper and wake my mom up and tell her. And it's just devastation. And we don't have no one. Like, there's no one. We had the funeral in my backyard. We just didn't have nothing. Like, there was not a family support system like that. It was tough. So I had to rise up again and be the man in that moment for our family. And I asked that bald-headed white guy to come back to help me do the funeral. And he said, yeah. Jason said, yeah. And, you know, so now I'm dealing with that. And so I'm still drinking now. Why not? I'm still popping pills. I'm not getting in trouble. I'm being slick. I'm being good about it. But then a month goes by and I get a DUI. Get pulled over for a DUI. Headed to Clemson from partying with some friends. And, you know, I'm scared. But I guess wasn't scared enough, because went to court, blah, blah, blah. They locked me up that night. I got out in the next morning, signed out. My parole officer doesn't know. I'm not telling them. And I guess go back to trying to work, but I'm not putting the bottle down. I'm not. It's becoming now like a real. I'm 22, 23. It's becoming now like a real crutch that I'm leaning on. These pills and drinking, and a couple weeks, maybe 2 months go by, and I'm day drinking, and I pull out a McDonald's drunk in the middle of the day, 12, 1 o'clock. Boom, hit an 18 wheeler hits the front of my car. And I already know I am so scared. I'm on parole. I'm going back for 14 months if they catch me any trouble. I already have a DUI. I am not getting caught again. I book it. The bumper's on the side of the freaking car, barely hanging on. I book it all the way back to my mom's house and pass out in the driveway with the car on. I wake up to a African American, a brother with a police officer with his gun on his hip, like, sir, don't do anything stupid. And I go into belligerence. What are y'all doing here? Blah, blah, blah. Y'all don't know this. No, I ain't doing that. And they already know. Like, your bumper's all off. You're drunk. Like, they take me, lock me up, hit and run, DUI, number 2. So now it's not looking real good at all. And at this point, I guess in my head, like, I don't know, dude. Like, I guess in my head at this point, who cares? I'm making sandwiches for grown men. I'm a felon. I ain't got nothing to lose. And like my life's, yes, I had this moment with Jesus, but my life ain't improving. Like, it is. I thought something would be different by now. I mean, I guess I'm saved, but I don't feel saved. I don't feel nothing's improving out here. So I'm starting to get into this like screw it mode. And then I lose another brother. This is my older brother on my father's side. He took me in while I was in Asheville before my aunt did. He was in Blood Gang. And he was legit. And like, that's why when I came down to Easley, some of these guys, I was kind of just not laughing at, but I was like, y'all playing gang. Up there where I just came from, it was for real gang. And yeah, he got shot in the heart on a drive-by.
And you said this was in Nashville?
Asheville, North Carolina. Yep. He got shot in the heart in a drive-by, died at age 24. And it was just like, dang, like what is, like, this is weird. And I don't know, bro. I just said, I guess I'll go back to the bottle. Like, why not? And I kept drinking and kept popping these pills. And I kid you not, one night I'm coming back from the strip club in Greenville, South Carolina, with my friends, drunk, going to Clemson, the university, to go find a party or something. And I'm barely staying awake on the road. I nod out. I hit a car beside me. I freak out again because I know I'm not going back, blah, blah, blah. I'm already so I'm not stopping. I'm going to take my chance of trying to get away. And so immediately what I wanted to do was pull into a neighborhood and act like I live there. It's late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and just act like I live there and wait till the police cool off. And my boys are with me, but they're so messed up that they passed out. And I come flying in this neighborhood and I pull into someone's driveway. And I thought I was going to be able to pull in the driveway just really quickly, but I end up hitting their house. Boom. Hit their house. Totaled the car, made the front news. Police show up. The first police officer that showed up was a female caught by herself. And 3 grown men, belligerent, drunk. She trying to we're running around. I'm calling up mom and they come, they lock us up. They ask if I need an ambulance. I tell them, give me the ambulance. And I get thrown in jail again. This is now 2 DUIs, 3 DUIs, 2 hit and runs. I'm on parole. And like, It's done. It's over. Now it's in Greenville. I done got charges in Pickens. This is Greenville County. Now I'm racking up charges all over the upstate. I don't know, man. Grace, this is where grace starts to get involved mysteriously, like God can do. But I end up bonding out because I haven't gone to court for the other DUI. So they technically don't know I got two other DUIs because I still haven't gone to court for them. That's how short this all.
What age are you at this point? You're 24?
24, 25, maybe 23, actually. 23, 24.
Okay.
And so, you know, I lost my job. Yeah, I lost my job. I had another job too. I remember during this period where I was doing really well, but I was still showing up drunk to my job. Like that whole 2-3 years is a little bit of a blur because I was drinking every day and taking pills every day, going to work. You know, Duke's mayonnaise, there's the plant in upstate, and I worked for them for a little bit. I showed up, I guess, drunk and don't even know it on pills. And I wake up just at the house and I try to go to work and they're like, you don't have a job here. You got fired yesterday. And I don't even remember yesterday at all. That's how crazy those pills were with alcohol. And so I'm getting fired left and right. I'm getting jobs at little shops like the Mako shop where they do body paint and they cars and stuff. I'm trying to pick up side jobs here and there. I got no license. Yeah, no license. And now this is a third DUI and I'm broken. I'm like, yo, what? I'm living in a shed. Like I'm 23, 24. I remember walking on a railroad track. Oh yeah, during this whole fiasco, I was stealing stuff because I was so out of my mind that it wasn't stealing stuff that I needed. I was just stealing stuff to steal it because the Xanax and the pills and being drunk, like walking into Walmart and thinking I could just walk out with a vacuum cleaner on my shoulder and then fighting security. Like it was so bad. It was just terrible. And I'm on this railroad track walking and I'll never forget it because I remember Coyote being down the like 30, 40 yards down there. He jumps across the road and I'm sitting there on the railroad thinking about what am I going to do with life. And I remember just praying, man. I remember just praying and asking God for help or for something and just talking to him in a real way, but a broken way, tears. Like I thought I was saved. I thought things were going to get better. I was going to church for a little bit. I was trying, but my life wasn't changing. And I just felt like God spoke to my heart and said, Kelby, I love you and I'm gonna use you for ministry. This will all be used. And it was a very weird confirmation, but it was that. It was, I love you and I'm gonna use you. And I remember going back to the house and talking to Mom, and we're talking, and she brings up how maybe rehab would be good. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe so. Maybe I need to go to rehab. And there's this place called Home with a Heart. It's a free rehab in the upstate. And I send them a nice application and I file. And the director calls me up. Countryest dude I've ever. This facility is the countryest. It's a farm. Literally, the facility is in the field with the cows and like, it's crazy. The director calls me up, Mr. Ritchie, and says, son, we got a bed here. You still want to come? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so I show up, and it was first time in a long time that I just felt peace. And it had to be supernatural because there was no reason for me to feel peaceful. But that facility and that man did not believe in anything but one thing. And that was freedom through Christ. There was no doctors. There's no sitting down and talking about how your dad mistreated you and how you didn't have this and how poor, woe is me. There was none of that. It was Christ can set you free. You will receive the word 3 to 4 times a day. We will go to these AA meetings. You will be educated on how to handle your emotions and how to make wise decisions. But at the end of it all, you will understand that Christ is the one that'll set you free, and you will have opportunity to be baptized in this program. And I said, yeah. And I stayed there 60 days, finished that program, and I just felt like a totally new person. And it doesn't work like that for everybody, though, because the success rate of these programs is like 10%. People come and go all the time, just like they're not really. But for me, it was exactly what I needed. And I had some real encounters with the Lord at that place alone, whether in tears, whether in prayer moments, whether in with ministers, whether in the back of a van on the way to a church, looking out a window, just some real moments, whether in a house, because we had to go and we had to do work jobs and had to go move furniture for people during the middle of the day. That was how the facility helped keep its lights on. It would go help the community, and the boys, the people part of the program, would go do it. And I left that place, man, completely changed. And while I was in there, at this point, trying to think. I was out on bond, but they put an ankle monitor on my leg, and I had to stay at the house, except for going to this facility. And I remember going to court. The lawyer has been with me longer than he's been with his own child. I've been his client for like 4 or 5 years, because I'm just straight up just public defender's office every 3 months. And anyways, dude, long story short, I walk in that courtroom, and Grace met me there in that courtroom. And I just laid it out before the judge of where I was, life, and the things I did to show that I was ready to make a change. Went through a couple of training schools on how to, overcome alcohol addiction and pills. Went to the rehab, and that judge had mercy on me and let me walk out of there with a slap on the wrist. He dropped like 5 of the charges, and kept 1 or 2 DUIs, and I walked out of there with a fine and with my freedom. And life changed after that. I just really had a moment where I was no longer I recognized some of the things that led to my destruction. I recognized how the enemy was moving on me to get me to make bad decisions. And then I came to a place where I now had the inspiration to do the thing that I knew that I needed to do. Cut people off. Go to church even when I didn't feel like it. Invest in my spiritual life. Invest in my emotional and intellectual intelligence. Be a great steward of my time. No more wasting time on stupid stuff. And then most importantly, live a life worthy of the calling that I've received. Being a good person, a good citizen, being someone who, I had long hair at the time, cut all that off. I didn't care no more. If it made me look like I was a type of person, I don't need it. And my attitude changed, man. And that was 10 years ago. Today, I get to run a $1 million company. We have 10, 11, actually probably 15 staff members at this point. I was a pastor for 6 years at a church. By the way, it was the bald-headed white guy's church. I stayed with him for 15 years. He invited me to his church, ordained me as his youth pastor, and brought me on staff. I sat down with him a couple years ago and said, well, how did you end up in the jail cell? And he said, you know that detective? I was like, Brandon, who came to my house with the gun on the hip? He's like, Brandon, yeah. He told me there was something different about you. And he sent me up here to talk to you. And Brandon's church invited me to come speak one night. This was after my life had changed. They invited me to come speak one night. And I kid you not, walking at the end of that session that evening, walking down the aisle was Detective Brandon with his son, and he was just bawling, tears in his eyes. And he just walked up, gave me a hug, and introduced me to his son. And he spoke a prophetic I take it as prophetic, as a word in my life that I'll just cherish. And he just said, I was so proud of you. He's the chief of that department today. Me and him have a great relationship. The story was so crazy. WYFF, our news channel, picked it up and they came out and did this little whole skit just talking about it, especially because of all the heat that was with police and, you know, people like me. And like, so they covered that story. But man, the point is, I finally got to a point where I surrendered, not just my feelings of feel like I want to be saved, raise my hand, but I surrendered my decisions. I went to church every day. I would even risk freedom just to get to church. It was weird because I didn't have a license, but I refused. I remember telling myself, boy, you would risk your license going to get a blunt, but now you want to be precious with risking to not go to church. So I would still even just try to either bum a ride, or I would get a ride. My stepdad or my mom would let me get the car. They knew I was going to church and coming right back, and they would do it. And I met my wife in church in a prayer circle. We've been married. We've been together now 7 years. I'm expecting my first child this May, coming up May, 2 months from now, little girl. And like everything switched, everything changed. And it was because of his grace. There was a part in my life where I had to make some critical decisions, and I had to realize the enemy's tactics, especially with drugs, alcohol, and time. Those three things alone, I had to realize how he was playing on me and moving on me with that stuff. And once I got serious with that and was educated around that, and then once I had the inspiration from God's Holy Spirit of, you are not this person, Kelby. This is not your life. This is not your purpose. This is not what I've called you to. Today, I get to work with over 150 churches. I get invited to go share and speak with different ministries and nonprofits all over. We have an agency that works with over 100 churches every single month. And I never would have dreamed that life would have got to this point. But for those that may be watching, especially on your show, who either have someone like me, maybe it's a son, maybe it's a nephew, maybe it's, I don't know, or you might be that person. I hope this encourages you that the God of miracles still works miracles today. And it may not look like the miracles in the Bible all the time. It may not be just instant. That's all I was hoping for. But I believe if you're faithful with not giving up on him and always keeping your ear and always remembering him, even in the darkest and the lowest moments, even in the stupid decisions, even when I was doing drugs and going to the strip club, that voice was there. And some of your people know exactly what I'm talking about. That voice is there. And you can't shut it off. You can try ignoring it, but it's better to just acknowledge it. And I believe God will meet you where you're at and help you get through whatever you're going through. So D, that's it, man. That's what happened. That's where we're at now. That's how I had the lovely privilege of meeting you, talking with you, and we'll just keep seeing what God's up to now after this.
So, man, I appreciate you telling your story, because look, bro, you got a gift of telling the story, because look, you got me over here nervous when you're talking about like all the stuff that you've been through, being chased. I'm like, dang, because you have a way of bringing us in, like in the situation. Like I said, I'm like, dang, like I feel like I'm in a car with you when all this stuff is happening.
That's cool.
And
That's
you
cool.
had a lot of stuff too, like, you know, that's really important, you know, for people to understand. You said that God had showed you that you're not this person. You know, he showed your identity. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people, because the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
That's right. That's right.
Dealing with a lot of confusion on who they are and who they're not. And they are relating back who they were. You know what I mean? And you also had said something too that I think is really interesting. I never really thought about it. But you were talking about how when you was on Xanax, it would make you want to steal. Now, you know, like I'm from that lifestyle. So it makes me realize that different pills come with different spirits. There's some drugs that people take.
That's right.
talk a lot. If some drugs people take, it'll make a person want to just like shut down. Some drugs people take, when you come down, you just feel like you're actually in hell, because these things are not just physical things. They come with spirits that'll make people.
They come with spirits.
I want to ask you a couple questions about this.
Yeah.
So for parents that are watching this and they have a child that is 15, 16, 17, 18, you know, you had mentioned when you were 16, 17, you was taking the on this identity of a gangster. Like you wanted to be hard. But for parents to understand, you know, why their kid is acting like that, because when you were talking about your story, I know you did say you was without a father, but outside of that, what do you think that came from, that influence that made you want to be like that? Because a lot of parents are like, why my kid is acting like that when they feel like they've done everything right.
I know exactly. I know exactly what I would do now if I ever get a kid in that situation. And it's this right here. Number one, it's nurture and nature a little bit. But let's do this. Where I grew up, the environment I in, and this is hard because some of us feel like, well, we're stuck in the environment we are. We don't make enough to get out of this. We don't have the resources. We don't have the connections to, but we got to figure out a solution. We got to find some way. And so here's what I'll say. The environment I grew up in, the significance that I was hungry for, the only solution I found for that level of significance that I wanted, especially as a teenager, to sum it up, I wanted to feel and be important to someone. And the only people that I saw that were important to the hood was the G's. Like was like in that situation was the blood gang and the top ranking in the blood gang. Like if you were him, you get everything with that. You get notoriety, you get the girls, you get money. So I kept seeing that over and over, whether it was through technology on YouTube or on TV or just the neighborhood. It was reinforcing my hunger for significance, and significance in a young man or any teenager is so powerful. It is a need that has to get met somehow. And that was my way of meeting that need. I was going to become this. Now, how could I have fought that? It's not to make the need disappear, because I don't think we can do that. The kid needs to feel important, is going to want to feel important. I'm a big believer in sports because sports can also do this. I don't watch football or basketball. I did kickboxing and MMA for 10 years, 15 years. But sports can help provide a level of significance to a young person. I know they may not be interested in sports, but maybe somewhere along there, we can figure out something that they can find interest in. But it also needs to meet the need. For example, you could put your kid on the sports team, but if you know they're the 8th player, they're not that great, they're not that good, they don't love it, well, maybe it's not really meeting that need. So let's pivot. Let's find something else where they're naturally good at, so they feel significant in that area, because then they can start to see, I can attach my need to this thing instead. So there's healthy ways to meet significance, and there's non-healthy ways to meet significance. I did not have a lot of healthy ways to see. I tried sports. That's why I referenced that. I tried sports. Was not good at football. Didn't care. Basketball, okay. I was like the 4th best. And I was so emotional that because I was the 4th best, if I couldn't be the best, it would destroy me. But I couldn't know how to keep going. I just didn't have the tools, resources, someone to train me. I don't know, but I couldn't win in that field. So I gave up on that. And then my only option was this. I can join the gang. I can join the gang and, like, you know what? Whatever. I had a pistol at 14, a 22, a little pistol at 14, in the hood. Like, and God, thank God I didn't get to a point where it got bad, but I hid that thing in a pizza box in the back of the apartment complex. And the kids found it, I think. And like their parents told my older brother, and he took it. And even though he was in the blood gang, and he didn't want me to take that path. He really didn't, low key. At least when my conversations with him, he was again, there was some grace that was involved that like took over his mouth, took over his mind, even in his own ignorance, to speak stuff into me where I did not pick up that flag. But that's the thing. That's the real thing, that today, if I had a kid, I would be trying to figure out his needs or her needs for significance and how I can help find a solution for that, because it's such a big driver. It's such a big driver. So that's what got me to the gang stuff and like kicked everything off, right? Because I was just trying to find a place to feel important.
So you said this word a couple of times. You was talking about healthy ways. Now you had mentioned this in another part of your story where when you were struggling with like pills and alcohol and stuff like that, you said at that point in time you didn't have healthy ways to cope. And so for people that are trying to find healthy ways to cope, because also I want to talk about this too. I'm not trying to ask you a bunch of questions at once, but I think it's really important because what you went through, I forgot about that part of your story, you losing your brother, and I'm sorry, for your loss, because man, I can't, I can't imagine that. So it's easy for people to want to escape, but then you also mentioned some other good points too, because you said it wasn't just about trying to, escape. You said also too, when it comes to anxiety and stuff like that, I feel like that's what a lot of people, they realize when they get, lit, they able to socialize and stuff like that, because after you get high so many times, you kind of forget how to deal with stuff. Just to, ask your questions, to make you understand what I'm saying. Like, what would you say are good, healthy ways for and coping skills for people that are struggling with not knowing how to live sober?
Yeah, this is so good. And I'll say, well, let me do this real quick. Let me fix this mic real quick.
All right.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where you got to be okay with suffering. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And like, that's okay. Never mind. Sorry, my bad. Being okay with, like, I don't know how else to put it, but that I think that brutal truth for a little bit is going to help, because if you can embrace suffering or find a way to handle suffering or start thinking about handle suffering. And I like using the word suffering because suffering brings it into reality, brings the real feeling into reality, because that's exactly what it feels like. I don't like saying cope. I don't like saying bored. I like saying the word suffering because that's what it feels like in those moments. Mm-hmm. And if you can just, number one, embrace the idea of suffering. So meaning, and how you do this is you have to get a vision of the future that is so compelling, a vision of yourself that is so compelling. It's like a magnet that it'll help pull you through those sufferings. So you're not suffering for no reason. You're suffering to become this version of yourself, or you're suffering to get or obtain this. And you have to make that real. One of the things that helped me was I started reading biographies and I started listening to people who were going through what I went through, because then it started building my belief system that I can also do that. And so whenever I got to the suffering point, I would say, you're trying to become this version. You have to go through the suffering. In fact, suffering is a part of the formula. And so you don't need to look at suffering as something negative. You almost need to look at suffering as an affirmation of you're heading to destiny now. There is no other way to destiny unless you get some of the suffering. If you don't get suffering, this is a good thing to know, then you're not on the way to destiny. So now that reframe makes you even just look at suffering different. You're like, okay, suffering is almost a positive now. And then you also hold on to this idea of what you're becoming, this thing, this person, this whatever it might be. And then now you got to deal with the drugs and this stuff. And so you're like, okay, I don't want to do it. What am I doing with my time? So I knew time was a big thing for me, of like, okay, I got to figure out what to do with my time, because I can sit here and just beat myself up for not knowing how to do something, or I can just start trying to figure out how to stay busy enough to where someone once said an idle mind is the devil's playground. Meaning that if you have nothing going on, he's just working and working and working. You know, when he came to tempt Jesus, the Bible said, and then he left for another opportune time. Right? It didn't say he left for good. He's gonna find a way to come right back. And so an idle mind was a very bad thing. I kid you not. I would try. Number one, I just found a job. Like, I know it's hard. No one likes to work, especially work for low pay, but you got to change how you look at work too. Like, and I was like, all right, at least work's keeping me busy away from the drugs or whatnot. Even if I'm suffering a little bit, let me just get through this 9 to 5 or my 7 to 3 or my 3 to 11 second shift, or even third shift. I did third shift for a couple years. And then you got your 6 to 12 at night. That is a very real time frame. Meaning you get home at 5 o'clock, you take a shower, you eat, and then you got this time between 6:30, 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night that you got to figure out something to do with. With me, I just devoted myself. I became obsessed with learning. And not learning stupid stuff. I thank God for a couple of voices in my life. And one of those voices was a man who told me that he basically he framed reading to me in a way I've never heard it before. And he basically said, all my solutions is reading. My fact that I couldn't approach a girl or get the girl that I want is because I don't read. The fact that I don't get paid enough, or I'm not intelligent, or I can't talk well is the fact that I don't read. The fact that I can't think properly is that I don't read. He basically he made reading to me so strong and so powerful that I became obsessed with reading a little bit. And I hated reading. I didn't graduate high school. I didn't go to college. But I just started doing it. I started reading these people, Dale Carnegie and Stephen Covey, and like just reading these people and starting to embrace this idea of that I am devoting time into becoming the version that I know God made me to be and that I can be, the potential that I do have. And so you got to embrace suffering, and then you got to find a way to reframe suffering, because there is no formula to get through this without suffering. That's the hard part about this whole thing, is that you're going to come off the drugs, you're going to come off the lifestyle, and you're going to be embraced with this S word of suffering. And you're going to have to rewire how you think. You're going to have to find joy in stupid things that you once thought was pointless. But at the very core of it, it's just, how do I embrace suffering, either through inspiration of others or through reframing it over and over, to where you really believe that X plus suffering equals greatness. So now when you look at suffering, you're just like, it's a positive thing. Like, it literally almost feels positive to you, because you know through your studying, through your beliefs, that no one becomes the thing that I want or the person I can be unless they go through this. And now I'm going through it, so I must be on my way. And then I believe grace will meet you with the rest of those things. The devil's in the details, but grace will be there to help. Don't be friends with them. Don't text that person back. A door will open. Do you want to, maybe it's like maybe it's a Bible study, it's opportunity, or I don't know. God will meet you though and give you ways to use your time. And then you got to have discernment to know to take those or not. So that's what I would share. That's what I would say.
You said a lot, man. It's good too, because I was going to ask you something else, but you pretty much answered in that. I was going to ask you, well, I still kind of want to ask you anyways. And then after that, we got to go, because I'm recording on a new device. And I don't know.
Okay. No worries.
Nervous, but I love what you said, man, because I feel like if people can really catch what you're saying about that, embrace suffering, because really it's just about the perspective that you see it. Like you said, you got to go through it. I just got a word from God, and something that he was telling me about a situation that someone would call suffering. It's like, he was letting me know, you have no idea what I am doing in this situation.
That's right.
The
That's
fruit
right.
that it's going to produce. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
One last question. When you were talking about the moment when you went back to jail, how hopeless you felt, how you was talking about how your job and all that type of stuff, like you really didn't feel like you had hope. And so Christians today feel like that. That's not just about people that are, that are going through situations like that. A lot of people are in a place in their life where they don't see the other side of this. They don't see things getting better. And I just want to ask you, like, for a person that could be watching this, that has felt like they have lost their hope, or if you could speak to the younger Kelby, like, what would you say? If you haven't already said it, because you already said a lot, but I just wanted to close out.
Yeah. This is, this is good. Number one, it's a spiritual game. You're looking for certainty in an area that God calls us to faith. And I've been down this journey. Hope. I can't remember the exact definition Paul gave, but it was a supernatural definition. It's believing that God is good and that he loves you first, and really believing that. And then it's also realizing that you have more power than you think, than you realize. So sometimes I tell parents, moms who message me and they're like, my son, I got one this today, she sent me the correctional facility details and want me to send her son a letter. And my heart breaks because I know. And there's so much that the enemy does. Maybe try to attack moms, make them feel like they're not a good parent, or, kill their hope. And here's what I would say. Number one is you have to realize this is a spiritual game. So if your spiritual life is not at a place where it's for real, you got to take inventory of yourself and see, like, am I doing this for real, or is this like a Sunday social gathering for me, or just a thing that I just put in my Instagram bio, or tattoo on my arm of a cross? You got to check in. Like, hope is a spiritual thing. You cannot go get hope from stuff in this world. You got to go to, I don't think any other animals think about hope, because it's a supernatural thing. So we got to embrace that. Number two is, I would say, you got to realize you have more power than you think you have. And here is a good illustration to make. Someone might be praying for their son to change, and hoping and trying to do everything and begging God to change him. Keep the hope, keep the prayer life of that, but then also realize that the spirit that God has put inside of you and the will, not everybody has that same drive, the heart for your son that you might have. So because you have that heart, love to the best of your ability. Use love as a way to, and this is tricky. This is tricky because this is supernatural, but use love as a way to almost guilt someone into wanting to change. Again, the Bible says this: be kind to your enemies. It's like putting coal on their head. They don't even understand it. It's supernatural. When you are over loving, it has that power, but you also have to embrace this. You still may not get the result. You still may not see the thing you exactly want to see, but you will find a deep satisfaction in knowing that you gave your best and you did your best in that situation. And that's very real, because again, if you're faking it with God, you know and you yourself knows all your actions and how you really feel and all the moments where you could have done that, but you didn't. And you can fake it to other people, but you just can't fake it to your spirit and the spirit that is living inside of you if you belong to Christ. And so when you go back alone and you know you weren't really giving it your best, it's hard to fight off the hopelessness. But if you know you are giving your best, it almost fuels hope. It's
Mm.
again, it's supernatural. Like if you're faking it, or if you know you're not getting, you're cutting edges. The enemy uses that to keep your hope in a container. But if you know you're giving it all and you're doing what you need to do, then it almost fuels and grows the hope in your life. I just keep going back to how this is a supernatural thing. This is a very spiritual thing, because hope is not something that has certainty to it. You can't be certain. The only thing you can be certain with your hope is the person you put your hope in, which is the Lord. Outside of that, it requires faith and it requires trust. And so, number one is check in. Are you doing this for real, for real? Because you need the fuel to keep your hope going life. If you're not doing it for real, or you're cutting corners and not, it's not, I don't really care. Like, it's not me trying to tell you. I really want you to do this because you will literally see the hope rise in you. Because right now, if you're not for real about that, you're faking it a little bit. And the hope knows it. The thing inside you knows it. And so you're trying to muster up more hope, but you don't have the fuel to give it. The only fuel you can give your hope is the faith and action that you're doing every day through love.
That's good.
And not cutting the edges. Because then when the enemy comes in your heart or in your mind and tries to speak to you about this hopeless situation, there's something there that's like, no, this is not, and I can't explain it. Again,
No, you're good. Because what you're saying is, because the Bible says faith without works is dead. Also,
that's right.
A spiritual thing, and it reminds me of 2 Corinthians, I think it's 4:18 or 4:17, when Paul is saying, though we focus on the things that we don't see instead of the things that we do see, because the things that we don't see is it's eternal, but the things that we do see are. So in order to have faith, in order to have hope, you have to have faith, but you can't have faith in what you see right now. Because if you've been focused on what you were seeing right now, I mean, that can drive somebody crazy. Your faith and hope have to be in what you don't see, but you also have to put actions into what you believe.
That's right.
No,
that's right.
We're going to reap whatever we sow. You know what I mean? And Galatians 9, it talks about do not grow weary in well doing. It says well doing because it says in due season. There's a season that's going to come when you're going to reap if you don't faint. You know, so thank you, man. Thank you for that, man. And I give you your props too, man, because for one, it's kind of funny. It ain't, but I'm just a little silly. Like I look at your picture of you don't even seem like that.
I know, bro. I've heard that so many times, and it is such a compliment to the grace of God. But absolutely, man. Like, no one would know. My wife didn't know. She did not meet that version of Kelby. She hears the stories and she just is like, I would never date that person. I would never have been, because like she has no idea. And
because you don't look like it. Because I'm thinking like, dang, this man was up here breaking in churches and everything. I forgot about that too, or I don't even know if that was in the Facebook tag. But just to see how far God has brought you is such a blessing. And even on props of you just doing this interview, because you didn't know. A lot of my guests know what I'm going to talk about, but we kind of just
free flow with it. Yeah,
I know I asked some some questions that you may have not been asked for or that was kind of challenging, but I definitely want to bring you back on because I know there's some other topics that I would like to talk to you about that I've seen on your page. So I'll be in touch with you with that, but I'm just going to end this like I always do for my viewers that could be going through some stuff that he been through or some other stuff that you could be dealing with, whether if it's addiction or if you feel like you just lost hope. Just know that there's nothing too hard for God. And no matter what you're going through, you can be free, because who the Son has set free is free.
That's right.
And we love y'all, and we are out.